Robert Chen looked at himself in the mirror and smiled. No one would know he was the CEO of TechVision today. He wore old blue jeans with a small hole in one knee, a plain gray t-shirt that had seen better days, and a baseball cap with the logo of the local baseball team. He had left his expensive watch at home. His wedding ring was the only thing that showed any sign of wealth, but many regular people had nice wedding rings. Perfect, he said to himself. Today, I am just Rob. Robert was tired of being the big boss all the time. As the head of TechVision, a company worth billions of dollars, people always treated him differently. They smiled too much. They laughed at jokes that weren't funny. They agreed with everything he said, even when he was wrong. It had been 5 years since anyone had told him no about anything important. His wife, Lisa, walked into the bedroom and laughed when she saw him. "You look like you're going to fix someone's sink," she said. "That's the idea," Robert said. "I just want to buy a truck like a normal person. No special treatment. No one kissing up to me because I'm rich." Lisa shook her head. "You could just send someone to buy it for you." "That's not the point," Robert said. "I want to do this myself. I want to see how it feels to be treated like everyone else." He had always loved trucks. When he was a boy, his father had an old Ford pickup that they used to drive to the lake on weekends. Some of his best memories were riding in that truck, the windows down, singing along to the radio with his dad. Now, at 45 years old, Robert wanted a truck of his own. Not for work, not to impress anyone, just for himself. "Can I borrow your car?" he asked Lisa. His own car, a black Mercedes with custom plates, would give him away instantly. "Sure," she said, tossing him the keys to her small Honda. "Have fun being poor." Robert drove 30 miles out of the city to a truck dealership called Fairview Trucks. It was a medium-sized lot with rows of trucks, new and used. Not too fancy, not too rundown. Just right for his plan. As he pulled into the lot, he took a deep breath. "My name is Rob Carter," he practiced saying. "I work in tech. I'm looking for a truck for weekend trips." He stepped out of the car and looked around. There were about 20 trucks on the lot. Some were big and shiny with all the extras. Others were more basic models. A few salespeople stood near the main building, talking and drinking coffee. Robert walked slowly along the first row of trucks, looking at each one carefully. He stopped at a blue truck that reminded him of his father's old Ford. It wasn't the biggest or the fanciest, but it looked solid and reliable. "Can I help you find something?" Robert turned to see a man standing behind him. He was about 50, with gray hair and a friendly face. His name tag said Mike. He didn't look like the car salesman Robert was used to dealing with. Those men wore expensive suits and too much cologne. Mike wore khaki pants and a simple blue shirt with the dealership's logo. His hands were rough, like he had worked hard all his life. "I'm just looking for a good truck," Robert said, trying to sound casual. "Something for weekend trips, maybe some light hauling." "Well, you've got a good eye," Mike said, nodding at the blue truck. "This is one of our most reliable models. Not too many bells and whistles, but you'll get the job done. What kind of work do you do, if you don't mind me asking?" "I'm in tech," Robert said, keeping it vague. "Software stuff." "Computer guy, huh?" Mike smiled. "My son's into that too. Always saying I need to upgrade my ancient phone." Robert laughed, surprised at how easy it was to talk to Mike. This was going to be interesting. His first normal human interaction in years. Mike walked around the blue truck, pointing out different features. Robert listened carefully, surprised by how honest Mike seemed to be. When Robert asked about the truck's gas mileage, Mike didn't try to hide that it wasn't great. "You'll get about 18 miles per gallon on the highway, less in the city," Mike said. "If you're worried about gas costs, you might want to look at something smaller." Robert couldn't help but smile. At the luxury car dealers he usually visited, no one ever mentioned downsizing. They always pushed the most expensive options. "I'd like to test drive this one," Robert said, pointing to the blue truck. "Sure thing. Let me grab the keys." Mike walked back to the small office building, and Robert looked around the lot. A few other customers were browsing, but no one paid any attention to him. It felt strange but good to be invisible. Mike returned with the keys and a small clipboard. "I'll need to see your driver's license," he said. Robert felt a moment of panic. His license had his real name, Robert Chen, not Rob Carter. He hadn't thought this through. He reached for his wallet slowly, trying to think of an excuse. "Actually," he said, "do you mind if I look at a few more trucks first? I want to make sure I'm test driving the right one." "No problem," Mike said easily. "Take your time." They walked along the rows of trucks, and Mike showed him several more models. One was much fancier than the blue truck, with leather seats and a high-tech dashboard. "This one's our top model," Mike said. "It's got all the bells and whistles, heated seats, premium sound system, the works." Robert ran his hand over the leather seat. At work, he would have chosen this truck without hesitation. The best was always best for the CEO of TechVision. "How much more is this one?" he asked. "About 15,000 more than the blue one," Mike said. Then he leaned in a little closer. "But between you and me, I don't think you need all this fancy stuff if you're just using it for weekend trips. You're paying for features you'll never use. The blue truck will do everything you need, and it's easier to maintain." Robert was shocked. Mike had just talked him out of spending more money. That had never happened to him before. "You're not very good at upselling," Robert joked. Mike laughed. "I've been selling trucks for 25 years. I learned a long time ago that the best way to get repeat customers is to sell them what they actually need. I don't want to sell you a truck today. I want to sell you every truck you'll ever buy." As they walked back toward the blue truck, Mike asked, "So what kind of software do you work with?" Robert had prepared for this question. "I work on business systems," he said vaguely. "Nothing exciting." "My son Danny is trying to get into that field," Mike said. "He's been teaching himself coding for years. Real smart kid. Just can't afford those fancy tech schools." Robert felt a twinge of interest. His company was always looking for good programmers, but they typically only hired from top universities. "What kind of coding does he do?" Robert asked. Mike's face lit up at the chance to talk about his son. "All kinds. He built websites, apps, you name it. He even built a program for the local animal shelter to track their animals and medical records. Did it for free, just to get experience." "That's impressive," Robert said, and he meant it. They reached the blue truck, and Mike handed him the keys. "Why don't you take it for a spin? The test drive route is pretty simple. Just go down this road, take a right at the light, and it makes a big loop back here." Robert climbed into the driver's seat and adjusted it. The truck felt solid and practical, nothing like his Mercedes or the company cars at TechVision. "I'll come with you to answer any questions," Mike said, getting into the passenger seat. "Unless you prefer to drive alone." "No, come along," Robert said. He had started to like Mike and wanted to hear more about his son. As he turned the key, Robert realized he was actually enjoying himself. Being Rob Carter for a day was turning out to be more interesting than he had expected. Robert drove the blue truck down the road, feeling the power of the engine. It was nothing like his luxury cars, but there was something honest about it. The truck didn't try to hide the bumps in the road or the sound of the engine. It felt real. "Handles pretty well, doesn't it?" Mike said. "It does," Robert agreed. "Tell me more about your son. You said he's into coding." Mike smiled widely. Talking about his son clearly made him happy. "Danny is 23, smart as a whip. He got interested in computers when he was just a kid. I couldn't afford to buy him fancy equipment, so he used the old computers at the library. Taught himself everything he knows. That takes determination," Robert said, truly impressed. "You bet. After high school, he wanted to go to college for computer science, but we couldn't afford it. My wife got sick a few years back, cancer, and the medical bills took everything we had, even with insurance. Robert gripped the steering wheel tighter. He had never had to worry about money for education or medical bills. His parents had paid for his college at Stanford, and now he had more money than he could spend in a lifetime. "I'm sorry to hear that," Robert said. "Is your wife okay now?" "She passed 2 years ago," Mike said quietly. Danny wanted to put off his dreams to help take care of her, but she wouldn't let him. Made him promise to keep trying. Robert didn't know what to say. His own problems, people being too nice to him, having too many yes men around, suddenly seemed small. So now Danny works at the grocery store during the day and takes classes at the community college at night, Mike continued. He applies for jobs at tech companies all the time, but they never call him back. They all want degrees from fancy schools or years of experience. They stopped at a red light, and Robert turned to look at Mike. The older man wasn't complaining or asking for pity. He was just stating facts. "What kind of tech companies does he apply to?" Robert asked, already knowing what the answer would probably be. "All the big ones. Google, Apple, Microsoft. There's a big one here in town too, TechVision. That's his dream job, actually. He's applied there 5 times. Robert felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. TechVision was his company. He had built it from nothing to a billion-dollar business. And somewhere in his company, someone had thrown away Danny's application. Not once, but 5 times. "What makes TechVision his dream job?" Robert asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "They make that software that helps small businesses. Danny says their code is the best in the business. And they're local, so he wouldn't have to move away." Mike looked out the window. "I keep telling him to try smaller companies, but he's stubborn. Gets that from his mother." The light turned green, and Robert continued driving. His mind was racing. TechVision did have strict hiring policies. They typically only hired from top schools: Stanford, MIT, Berkeley. Robert had always thought this was the right approach. Get the best talent from the best schools. But what about people like Danny, who couldn't afford those schools? What if? Robert started, then stopped himself. He had been about to offer to help, forgetting that he was supposed to be just a regular guy looking for a truck, not the CEO who could give Danny a job with one phone call. What if what? Mike asked. What if he created a really impressive project? Robert said instead, something that showed what he could do, even without the fancy degree. Mike laughed. That's what I keep telling him. He's built all kinds of things. Websites, apps, programs. He even fixed our neighbor's security system when the company wanted to charge her hundreds of dollars. The kid can do anything with computers. As they turned back into the dealership, Robert made a decision. He wasn't sure what it would be yet, but he was going to do something about Danny. And maybe about TechVision's hiring policies too. I like this truck, he said as he parked. Let's talk about the price. Mike led Robert back to a small office in the dealership building. The room was simple, with a desk, 3 chairs, and pictures of trucks on the walls. There was also a photo of a young man in a graduation cap and gown on Mike's desk. Robert guessed it was Danny. Is that your son? Robert asked, pointing to the picture. Mike picked up the frame with a proud smile. That's him. High school graduation. First person in our family to finish high school. He was going to be the first to go to college too, before his mom got sick. Robert looked at the young man in the photo. Danny had a bright smile and kind eyes like his father. Robert tried to imagine this smart, hard-working young man filling out application after application, only to be rejected because he didn't have the right degree. May I see it? Robert asked. Mike handed him the photo. Robert studied Danny's face and felt a strange mix of guilt and determination. His company might have missed out on someone special. He looks like a good kid, Robert said, handing the photo back. The best, Mike agreed. Now about that truck. The sticker price is $38,500, but I can get it down to $36,000 for you. That's honestly the best I can do." Robert was surprised again. At the luxury dealers he visited, there was always a dance around the price. The salespeople would start high, he would counter low, and they would settle somewhere in the middle. But Mike had just given him what sounded like an honest best price right away. "That sounds fair," Robert said. "I'll take it." Mike looked surprised. "Don't you want to think about it? Sleep on it. Maybe talk to your wife." Robert smiled. "I know what I want. This is the right truck for me." "Well, all right then," Mike said, pulling out some paperwork. "Let's get started on the forms. I'll need to see your driver's license and run a credit check if you're financing." The moment Robert had been dreading had arrived. He would have to show his real ID. He took a deep breath. "Actually, I'll be paying cash," he said, hoping to avoid the credit check. Mike's eyebrows went up. "Cash? For the whole thing?" "Yes," Robert said. It didn't occur to him until he saw Mike's reaction that normal people didn't usually buy trucks with cash. "Must be doing pretty well in that software job," Mike said with a smile. "But I still need to see your license for the paperwork." Robert hesitated. Then he decided to tell a half-truth. "The thing is, Mike, I recently got married. My license still has my old name on it, not my current legal name." This wasn't completely false. Robert had taken his wife's last name, Chen, when they married, adding it to his original last name, Carter. He was legally Robert Carter Chen, though he used Robert Chen professionally. Mike looked confused. "So what name should I put on the paperwork?" "Robert Carter," Robert said, taking out his license. He held it so Mike could see the name but not the full details. "See, Robert Carter Chen. I go by Robert Carter now." Mike glanced at the license and nodded. "No problem, Mr. Carter. I'll put it under Robert Carter." Robert felt a twinge of guilt for the deception, but he wasn't ready to reveal his true identity yet. He wanted to learn more about Danny and maybe find a way to help without using his position as CEO. "While we fill out these forms," Robert said, "tell me more about the projects your son has worked on. You mentioned he built a system for an animal shelter." Mike's face lit up again, and as he filled out the paperwork, he told Robert about Danny's various coding projects: a scheduling app for a local doctor's office, a website for the town's farmers market, and a tracking system for the animal shelter. The shelter was going to pay a company thousands of dollars, Mike explained. Danny did it for free because his mom used to volunteer there. They still use his system today. Robert listened carefully, asking questions about the technical aspects of each project. Based on Mike's descriptions, Danny seemed like he really knew what he was doing. Robert was becoming more and more convinced that TechVision needed to change its hiring approach. As Robert signed the last of the paperwork, he found himself feeling torn. He was enjoying his time as Rob Carter, but a large part of him wanted to tell Mike the truth. He wanted to meet Danny and give him a chance at TechVision. "All done," Mike said, gathering the papers. "The truck will be ready for you to pick up tomorrow. We just need to clean it and make sure everything is perfect." "Great," Robert said. He hesitated, then asked, "Do you have a business card? I might know some people who could use a good, honest salesman." Mike smiled and pulled a simple card from his desk drawer. It had the dealership's name, and his phone number. Nothing fancy. "I appreciate that," Mike said. "Most of my business comes from word of mouth." Robert took the card and put it in his wallet. Then he had an idea. "Does Danny have a website? Or a way to show his work online? Like a portfolio?" Mike's eyes lit up. "He does. He calls it a GitHub. It's where he puts all his code for people to see." Mike wrote a web address on the back of another business card. "He's always telling me to give this to people, but most truck customers aren't looking for programmers." He laughed. Robert took the card and looked at the GitHub address. He would check it out as soon as he got home. "Thanks, Mike. I know someone who might be interested in seeing his work." "That would be amazing," Mike said, his voice full of hope. Danny just needs one chance to prove himself. That's all. They stood up and shook hands. Robert felt the roughness of Mike's hand, the calluses from years of hard work. His own hands were soft from years behind a desk. The difference made him think about all the other differences between their lives. "I'll see you tomorrow for the truck," Robert said, "and I'll definitely pass along Danny's information." As Robert walked to his car, he couldn't stop thinking about Mike and Danny. He had started this day wanting to experience being treated like a normal person. Now he was thinking about how many talented people this company might be missing because of their hiring policies. Robert drove back to the city, his mind racing with ideas. When he got home, his wife Lisa was in the kitchen making dinner. "How was your adventure being a regular person?" she asked with a smile. Robert sat down at the kitchen counter. "It was eye-opening," he said. "I met this salesman named Mike. His son is a self-taught programmer who can't get hired because he doesn't have a degree from a fancy school." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "And let me guess, your company has rejected him." "5 times, Robert said, the guilt clear in his voice. "We never even looked at his application because he didn't check the right boxes." He pulled out the business card with Danny's GitHub address and showed it to Lisa. "I need to look at his work," Robert said. "If he's as good as his father says, we might need to change how we hire people." "What happened to just buying a truck like a normal person?" Lisa asked. "I did buy a truck," Robert said. "But I also got a wake-up call." He went to his home office and turned on his computer. He typed in Danny's GitHub address and started looking through the young man's coding projects. An hour later, Lisa found him still at his computer, completely absorbed in what he was seeing. "Is he good?" she asked. Robert looked up at her, his eyes wide with surprise. "He's not just good. He's brilliant. Look at this code. It's clean, efficient, creative. He's solving problems in ways I haven't seen before." He scrolled through more of Danny's projects, shaking his head in disbelief. "All this talent, and we rejected him 5 times without even looking," he said. "What a waste. What a terrible waste." Lisa put her hand on his shoulder. "So what are you going to do about it?" Robert thought for a moment. "First, I need to decide whether to tell Mike who I really am when I pick up the truck tomorrow. And then, I need to fix this problem at TechVision." Robert woke up early the next morning. He had not slept well. All night, he had thought about Mike, Danny, and what to do. He had also spent hours looking at all of Danny's coding projects. The young man was truly talented. "Have you decided what you're going to do?" Lisa asked as she handed him a cup of coffee. Robert nodded. "I'm going to tell Mike who I really am. And I'm going to offer Danny a job." "Are you sure?" Lisa asked. "Mike might be angry that you lied to him." "I didn't exactly lie," Robert said. "I just didn't tell the whole truth." Even as he said it, he knew it was a weak excuse. "Well, good luck," Lisa said. "I hope it works out." Robert dressed in his normal clothes this time. A nice button-up shirt, good pants, and his usual watch. He wouldn't pretend anymore. He drove his own car, the black Mercedes with the TechVision parking sticker on the window. When he arrived at the dealership, Mike was outside talking to another customer. Robert parked and waited until Mike was free. Then he walked over. Mike looked at him, then at the Mercedes, confusion clear on his face. "Mr. Carter," he said, not sounding sure. "Mike," Robert said, taking a deep breath. "I need to be honest with you. My name isn't Robert Carter. It's Robert Chen. I'm the CEO of TechVision." Mike's mouth dropped open. He looked at Robert, then at the car, then back at Robert. "TechVision. The company my Danny has been trying to get into." "Yes," Robert said. "I came here yesterday pretending to be someone else because I wanted to know what it felt like to be treated like a regular person. I'm sorry I wasn't honest with you." Mike's face was hard to read. He seemed surprised, but also confused and maybe a little angry. "So the truck, was that just a game too?" No, Robert said quickly. I really do want the truck. That part was true. And everything I said about being interested in Danny's work was true too. In fact, that's the main reason I came back today as myself. Mike crossed his arms, waiting for Robert to continue. I looked at Danny's GitHub last night, Robert said. He's incredibly talented. You were right. He just needs a chance to prove himself. I want to give him that chance. Mike's expression changed from confusion to hope. You want to give Danny a job? I want to interview him, Robert said. Based on what I've seen of his code, I'm pretty sure we'll want to hire him. But I need to meet him first, talk to him, see what he's like as a person. Mike's eyes filled with tears. He quickly wiped them away. He's a good kid, a hard worker. He never gives up. That's exactly the kind of person we need, Robert said. Someone who solves problems and keeps going even when things are tough. Mike seemed unsure what to say or do. He looked at Robert for a long moment. Why? He finally asked. Why would you do this? Robert thought about it. Because our conversation yesterday made me realize my company might be missing out on amazing talent. We've been too focused on fancy degrees and not enough on actual skills and character. Danny might be the first of many people we hire from non-traditional backgrounds. Mike was quiet for a moment. Then he stuck out his hand. Thank you, Mr. Chen. Please call me Robert, he said, shaking Mike's hand. And don't thank me yet. First, we need to set up that interview. Do you think Danny could come in tomorrow? A big smile spread across Mike's face. I'll make sure he's there. He works the morning shift at the grocery store, but I know his boss. We can work something out. Great, Robert said. Now how about we finish up with my new truck? I really do want it. Mike laughed, the tension breaking. Of course. It's all ready for you. We even washed it twice. As they walked toward the office to finish the paperwork, Robert felt lighter than he had in years. What had started as a simple desire to be treated normally had turned into something much more important. The next day, Robert sat in his large office at TechVision headquarters. The walls were glass, and he could see the busy office floor where hundreds of employees worked at their computers. His new blue truck was parked in his special spot in the garage below the building. He had driven it to work today instead of his Mercedes. His assistant, Sarah, knocked on the door. Mr. Chen, Mike and Danny Thompson are here to see you. Robert stood up, suddenly feeling nervous. He straightened his tie and nodded. Send them in, please. Mike entered first, wearing the same clothes he had worn at the dealership. Behind him was a young man in his early 20s. Danny was tall and thin, with the same kind eyes as his father. He wore a button-up shirt that was slightly too big for him, and a tie that looked like it had been tied in a hurry. Mr. Chen, Mike said, shaking Robert's hand. This is my son, Danny. Danny stepped forward, his hand shaking slightly as he offered it to Robert. It's an honor to meet you, sir. I can't believe I'm actually here. Robert smiled and shook Danny's hand. The honor is mine, Danny. I've looked at your code. Your work is impressive. Danny's eyes widened. You've seen my code. You actually looked at it yourself. I did, Robert said. Your project for the animal shelter was particularly interesting. Very clean, very efficient. Danny's face broke into a huge smile. Thank you, sir. I worked really hard on that one. Robert gestured to the chairs in front of his desk. Please, sit down. Both of you. Mike and Danny sat, both looking nervous and excited. Robert noticed that Danny had a folder in his hands, gripping it tightly. Is that your resume? Robert asked. Danny nodded and handed it to him. Yes, sir. I updated it last night. Robert took the folder but didn't open it. Danny, tell me why you want to work at TechVision. Danny sat up straighter. Your company makes software that helps small businesses compete with bigger ones. My mom used to run a small flower shop, and she struggled to keep up with the bigger stores. If she'd had your software, things might have been different. Danny paused, his voice getting a little softer. After she got sick, she had to close the shop. But I've always thought about how technology could have helped her. That's why I want to work here, to help people like my mom." Robert was silent for a moment. He hadn't expected that answer. He had thought Danny might talk about the technical challenges or the good salary. Instead, he had shared something personal and meaningful. "That's a good reason," Robert said. "Now tell me, if you could change one thing about our software, what would it be?" Without hesitation, Danny launched into a detailed explanation of how he would make TechVision's main product easier to use for people who weren't good with computers. He had clearly thought about this before, and his ideas were smart and practical. As Danny talked, Robert watched Mike's face. The father looked at his son with such pride that it made Robert's heart ache a little. He thought about his own father, who had died before Robert had become successful. Would his dad have looked at him that way? When Danny finished talking, Robert smiled. "Those are excellent ideas. In fact, they're very similar to some changes we've been planning." He closed the folder with Danny's resume without looking at it and stood up. "Danny, I'd like to offer you a job at TechVision. Not an internship, but a full job as a junior developer." Danny's mouth fell open. "Really? Just like that?" "Just like that," Robert said. "You've already proven what you can do through your work. That's more valuable to me than any degree." Mike put his hand on his son's shoulder, squeezing it gently. Danny looked like he might cry from happiness. "When can you start?" Robert asked. "Anytime," Danny said quickly. "I can give notice at the grocery store today." "How about Monday?" Robert suggested. "That will give you time to get ready." "Monday is perfect," Danny said, standing up and shaking Robert's hand again. "Thank you, Mr. Chen. I won't let you down." "I know you won't," Robert said. "And please, call me Robert." After Danny and Mike left, Robert sat at his desk thinking. He picked up his phone and called the head of Human Resources, Janet Williams. "Janet, I need you in my office right away," he said. 10 minutes later, Janet sat across from Robert. She was a serious woman in her 50s who had been with the company since the early days. "I just hired someone without going through the normal process," Robert told her. Janet frowned. "That's unusual for you, Robert. You've always been a stickler for following our hiring procedures." "I know," Robert said, "but this case is different. The young man I hired, Danny Thompson, has incredible talent but no college degree. Our system filtered him out automatically, 5 times. Janet looked uncomfortable. "Our hiring process is designed to find the best candidates from top schools. That's how we've always done it." "And what if the best candidates aren't all at top schools?" Robert asked. "What if some of them couldn't afford to go to college, or had family responsibilities, or just learned better on their own?" Janet didn't have a quick answer for that. "I want to start a new program," Robert continued. "Let's call it the Talent First Initiative. We'll look for people with proven skills, regardless of where they learned those skills. We'll judge them on what they can do, not where they went to school." "That's a big change," Janet said slowly. "The board might push back." "Let me worry about the board," Robert said. "I want you to put together a team to redesign our hiring process. Danny Thompson will be part of that team. He knows firsthand what it's like to be rejected because of our current system." Janet nodded, making notes on her tablet. "How soon do you want this implemented?" "Start working on it immediately," Robert said. "I want a plan on my desk in 2 weeks." After Janet left, Robert walked to the large window in his office. From here, he could see much of the city. Somewhere out there were more people like Danny, talented, hard-working people who just needed a chance. He had almost missed finding Danny because he had been too stuck in his old ways of thinking. Robert thought about how differently his visit to the truck dealership had turned out compared to what he had expected. He had gone there wanting to experience being treated like a normal person. Instead, he had found something much more valuable: a new perspective on his company and the people it hired. His phone buzzed with a text message from Mike. Danny just called his boss at the grocery store to give notice. "The kid is walking on air." Thank you again. Robert smiled and texted back, "No need to thank me. Your son earned this opportunity. I'm just sorry it took us so long to see his talent." Then Robert called his assistant. "Sarah, please set up a meeting with the executive team for tomorrow morning, and add Danny Thompson to the invite. He'll be starting on Monday, but I want him there for this." "Danny Thompson?" Sarah asked, sounding confused. "I don't see that name in our employee directory." "He's new," Robert explained. "Very new. And he's going to help us make some important changes around here." That evening, Robert drove his new blue truck home. As he pulled into his driveway, Lisa came out to meet him. "Nice truck," she said with a smile. "How did it go with Mike and his son?" "I hired Danny on the spot," Robert said, getting out of the truck. "And I'm changing our entire hiring process because of him." Lisa raised her eyebrows. "Wow, all that from buying a truck." Robert took her hand as they walked toward the house. "Sometimes the most important lessons come from unexpected places. I went to that dealership thinking I knew what I wanted. I had no idea how much I needed to learn." "So your day as a regular person turned out to be pretty extraordinary," Lisa said. "It sure did," Robert agreed. "It might end up being the most important day in the history of TechVision." 6 months later, Robert stood on a small stage in the TechVision cafeteria. The room was full of employees, old and new. At the front, closest to the stage, sat Mike and Danny Thompson. Danny now wore a TechVision t-shirt and looked completely at home. "Today we celebrate the first graduation of our Talent First program," Robert began. 25 amazing individuals who came to us without traditional degrees, but with exceptional skills and determination. The crowd clapped and cheered. Robert looked at the faces of the new employees. They were diverse in age, race, and background. Some had taught themselves coding. Others had learned through community college or online courses. All of them had proven their abilities through real projects and hard work. "When I started this company 15 years ago, I thought I knew exactly what kind of people we needed to hire," Robert continued. "I was looking for people like me, from top schools with fancy degrees. I didn't realize how many talented people we were missing." He looked at Danny, who smiled back at him. 6 months ago, I went to buy a truck. I wanted to experience what it was like to be treated like an ordinary person, not a CEO. I met a truck salesman named Mike Thompson." Robert gestured to Mike, who gave a small wave. "Mike told me about his son, a self-taught programmer who couldn't get hired because he didn't have the right credentials." Robert paused, looking out at the audience. That conversation stopped me cold. It made me question everything about how we hired people at TechVision. Thanks to Mike's honesty and Danny's talent, we created the Talent First program. And today, I can tell you it's the best decision this company has ever made. The room erupted in applause. Danny put his arm around his father's shoulders. "Our new team members have already made huge contributions," Robert said when the applause died down. "Danny Thompson's user interface improvements have increased customer satisfaction by 30%. Maria Jackson's security updates have made our systems stronger than ever. Leo Kim's app has helped small businesses save money and time." He gestured to the graduates, who stood up to be recognized. Everyone clapped again. "This is just the beginning," Robert said. "We're expanding the program next month. If you know someone with real skills who deserves a chance, tell them to apply to TechVision. We're looking for talent, not just degrees." After the ceremony, Robert found Mike by the refreshment table. "How's the truck running?" Mike asked with a smile. "Like a dream," Robert said. "Best purchase I ever made." "Best sale I ever made too," Mike said, though not because of the commission. They both looked over at Danny, who was showing something on his laptop to a group of coworkers. He looked confident and happy. "He's doing great here," Robert said. "Everyone respects him. He's already been promoted once." Mike's eyes were wet with pride. His mother would have been so proud. "I just wish she could have seen this." "I think she can," Robert said softly. Later that evening, Robert drove his blue truck to his cabin in the mountains. As he traveled along the winding road, he thought about how one day and one conversation had changed so many lives, including his own. The truck still felt honest and real to him, just like that first test drive with Mike. But now it represented something more, a reminder that sometimes the best way to lead is to step away from your title and really listen to people. Robert parked at his cabin and stepped out into the cool mountain air. In the distance, he could see the lights of the city where TechVision stood. The company was different now, better. And it had all started because he wanted to buy a truck like a regular person. He smiled to himself. Sometimes the most important journeys start with the simplest decisions. His had started with a blue truck and an honest conversation, and he wouldn't change a thing about where it had led him.